Hello and welcome to Inside Sports, presented by Meritus Health Urgent Care and Total Rehab. I'm Wes Decker, and this week's show is almost too big for its time limit, so allow me to get right to it. In golf, congratulations to the North Hagerstown contingent of J.J. Clemmer, Dylan Klein, Connor Norton, and Garrett Johnston, who last Tuesday qualified for this year's state tournament. The quartet finished third at the 4A 3A District 1 Championship, a placing that earns North a berth in next month's state tourney as a team for the fourth straight season. And extra props to the junior Clemmer, who not only carded the best score for the Hubs on the Black Rock course, his even par 71 was also the lowest score of his high school career to date. We should have more state tournament bound golfers to tell you about next week. The 2A 1A District 1 Championship was being played on Tuesday. It was last Thursday at North Hagerstown's Hub Arena that history was made on the volleyball court. While it may ultimately have no effect on state titles, the result of the match between Williamsport and North certainly created a buzz. The Wildcats' 5-set triumph, as Dan Kaufman tweeted shortly afterwards, halted a nearly 4-year reign by the Hubs over Washington County foes. Ironically, it was Williamsport who had last defeated North back on September 26th of 2011. The Wildcats won sets 1 and 3 last Thursday, while the Hubs captured games 2 and 4 to set up a deciding 5th. North jumped on top 7-4, but Williamsport tallied 11 of the final 16 points to score the victory in resilient fashion over the reigning 3A state champs. As Cats head coach Emily Crabtree said afterwards, this is definitely a feather in the cap, but we want a lot more feathers. Personally, I'm not only a fan of plumage, I might have to glue some on and flap my arms in order to get us through all of this because there's still so much left to go and so little time. Coming up, we'll give you the championship matchups for the county soccer tournament. Kevin Dunleavy joins me to revisit just how we got there this past Saturday. My overtime piece proposes how we might get there faster from now on, and there's plenty of football. While the purple and gold with Smithsburg will get its player representation, Bob Parsaliti and I take you through Week 3's 7 other games right after this.
When your family is hurting, you don't have time to wait. Act now. Visit Meritus Urgent Care on Pennsylvania Avenue. Open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Meritus Urgent Care treats minor conditions like earaches, sore throats, and sprains. Meritus Urgent Care also offers x-rays and sports physicals, and many prescriptions are filled on site. Located off Interstate 81 on Pennsylvania Avenue, visit Meritus Urgent Care. Expert care, close to home.
Behind every great child, there is a great foundation. Premier Martial Arts will empower your child and give them a premier foundation to success. Our instructors have the passion to teach classes designed to build premier skills. Your child will develop greater self-control, confidence, and concentration. Premier Martial Arts will take your child up the path of greatness. Call Premier Martial Arts today.
Welcome back to the show. Glasses on. That means it's time to get down to football business, a segment we're calling 7 Games in 8 Minutes. I'm joined by Bob Parsaliti now. Bob, let's start with those Boonesboro Warriors who went into the week as one of 2 unbeatens. Warriors go to 3-0 with a 63-14 win over Brunswick. 9 touchdowns on the board for Boonesboro in that game, led 41-7 at halftime.
Well, they got the running game going in this game. That's something they have not really showed a lot of. That's that front line again for them, and you look at Brunswick, they're a little challenged this year. So, I mean, all that just makes the perfect storm for a really good game.
Yeah, no question about it. In Boonesboro's favor for sure. 104 points scored now, just 20 allowed through 3 games. But you look at the combined record of their opponents to date, just 2-7. We'll get a good test on Friday night against Middletown, despite the fact that Middletown's only 1-2 coming in. Full attention from both sides in that one because Boonesboro beat Middletown last season. Manchester Valley and Clear Spring, 2 teams that were 2-0 going into Friday night. Clear Spring seeking its first 3-0 start to a season since 2011. Manchester going after its first 3-0 start ever. As it turned out, it was all Manchester Valley, 34-0. Clear Spring came in averaging 32.5 points per game, but Manchester had only given up 6 entering that contest. They don't give up any on Friday night. What did we learn about Clear Spring in that game?
Well, Clear Spring's one of those teams that really has to be able to run the ball, and you take that away, they can't carry it with the pass. So you have Joe McCoy, who's had great first 2 games, but he got held to 27 yards in this game. And you take away the run and just make them, one-legged basically, leaning on the pass. They don't have the weapons to really do that. So they either need balance or a lot of run to really be successful.
And takeaways really the key. 4 giveaways by Clear Spring, no takeaways by the Blazers, and that really factored into that. Last time the Clear Spring started 3-0, though, they ended the season just 4-6, so maybe it's a good thing they don't get the win. They'll play Hancock on Friday, which is a game we'll have on Antietam Cable. Hancock coming off a decisive win over Carson Long, 55-25. Panthers built a 20-6 lead at the end of the opening quarter, extended it to 48-6 at halftime, up 55-6 after 3 quarters, and a literal runaway victory. Talking about getting the running game going, that was what the Panthers got back to after the previous week, which kind of tripped them up a little bit.
Well, Ian Mann had 2 touchdowns. Jake Reed had 3. Jared Hose had 2, all on the ground. They're playing a Carson Long team who was playing their season opener,
Right,
for starters, and they're a team that's really trying to get their program back. So this was a one for the picking too. I think kind of interesting in there too. Paige Weller, female kicker for the Panthers, kicked 4 out of 5 field goals or extra points during the week too.
So the Panthers getting everything going in that game. Now the big rivalry matchup. 6-5 is the all-time series with the Blazers leading by 1 game in that one coming up on Friday in Clear Spring. Liberty over Williamsport, 51-12. Wildcats made a change at quarterback. They go to Matt Malfers, but they were already down 21-0 before he could even make any impact in the game. Wound up throwing for a touchdown in the first quarter, ran for one in the second period, but it was all Liberty as they turn out 392 yards of total offense. Wildcats, just not able to sustain what they were able to get done in game number 1.
Well, that's an interesting move because Matt's probably one of their better runners too, so that's going to take that away from there. I know they're looking at Kayvon Carter to be the main guy, but he always helped. Malfers is pretty steady back there, so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of changes they make around there.
And he did do a lot of running from that quarterback position. Now, Williamsport at 1-2, they get an 0-3 Berkeley Springs team at home on Friday. St. John's Catholic Prep all over St. James, 48-13. That St. James offense that had been so prolific the first 2 games really shut down in their first road game of the season. Tyler Raymond throws 2 second-half touchdown passes, but the game was already well out of hand by then.
Well, St. James turned the ball over a lot, and St. John's came out and changed their defense in order to take away the passing game. They came out with a 4-2-5 set.
Wow, that's rare. You don't hear that very often.
So, I mean, they came out with a lot of defensive backs out there to try to take away the passing game. And St. James turns around and turned the ball over a couple of times and was down 22-0 at the half. And then it was uphill from there.
So they kind of played right into St. John's Catholic Prep's strategy as it turned out. And now St. James gets Maryland School for the Deaf is off to a great start, 4-0 already this season, that game on Friday. Century over North Hagerstown, 19-13. The Hubs battled out of a 2-touchdown hole to forge a 13-13 tie after 3 quarters, only to come up excruciatingly short in the end yet again. North has been outscored 79-9 collectively in the first half of games they played this season, while turning the tables in the second half. They're now 27-13 in their favor the last 2 weeks. And again, we say they continue to make strides, but in the end, another defeat, a tough one for the Hubs at home against Century, a team that last year really struggled.
Well, I mean, they really need to find a way to get that first touchdown. I mean, they need something to battle from on top because coming from behind is tough. A lot of those touchdowns are late in the game,
right?
And those are nice and those are cosmetic though. They have to really do something. It seems like Benny Barnes is coming along. He's a sophomore at quarterback. He seems to get better every week, and they have Scott Neal, who seems to be becoming is a young pass catcher. So they have a lot of youth that has to learn on the fly.
Yeah, no question about that. The Hubs now 0-3. They're at 1-2 Westminster on Friday. Last time, by the way, that the Hubs beat a Carroll County school, September of 2011. So history not necessarily on their side there, although you could say they're due for sure. South Hagerstown goes to South Carroll last Friday in what turned out to be a terrific football game. South fighting back 3 times from touchdown deficits. And once they did it for the 3rd time, about midway through the 3rd quarter, the defense had made its adjustments and found its footing in that game, and South wins it 21-20.
Well, the difference in the game ends up being an extra point missed in the first quarter, as it turns out. But, you know, South's defense, I was looking at their stats. They have a lot of guys that are pretty active, so it swarms a lot of teams.
And offensively, T.J. Peer had a hand or a foot in every one of South's points, of which the Rebels needed every single one. And for that, he is the Inside Sports Buffalo Wild Wings Player of the Week. The senior throwing for 144 yards, completing 10 passes to 5 different receivers, 2 for touchdowns, ran for a team-high 44 yards, and scored the tying TD right before he kicked his third extra point, which turned out to be the game winner. So T.J. Peer is our Inside Sports Buffalo Wild Wings Player of Week 3. South now 2-1, home Friday night against 3-0 Linganore, a team that's knocked them out of the playoffs the last 2 years. I'd say there's going to be a fair amount of interest in that game on Friday. It's been a whirlwind, Bob. That's football for this week. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm back right after this with a couple of Smithsburg Leopards who will join me in just a moment.
Excuse me, you realize this television's on a channel with men in silk robes slapping each other? Maybe we could just switch it to where the athletes are wearing shoes?
This gentleman and this gentleman want to know if we can change his channel.
I love karate. He doesn't like karate.
No, me?
You don't like karate?
I do.
I love it.
Are you kidding? I was telling you how much I want to join a dojo. Could you recommend a dojo?
Buffalo Wild Wings, 21 sauces and seasonings, tons of taps, and countless flat screens. Nowhere is sports more alive.
Yeah, how can we help you today?
I really need to get back to work.
Whether it's going back to work or getting back on the golf course, Total Rehab Care maximizes every patient's individual potential, offering state-of-the-art rehab, including physical, occupational, and speech therapy, all in one location. Experts who take a personal interest in their patients' progress. Call or visit online for more information. Meritus Health, treating the community well.
Welcome back to the show, and we continue now with more football. Smithsburg Leopards in the house, represented by Cole Huntsberry and Bryce Scott. Welcome to the show, guys. Bryce, I feel like you should just take the show over. I mean, you've been here a number of times now. I think this is time number 4, so you're the old professional here. Let's talk about Friday night's game, the win over North Carroll, 23-6. Very important to get back on the winning track after, I assume, what was a very frustrating game the week before against Manchester Valley. But talk a little bit about the defense that this team has played so far this season. It's been lights out.
Yeah, it's been pretty great. The Coach Lindsay really loves his defense, and our guys just react so well with everything he does. So we always just have phenomenal defense, and we don't ever have to worry about that.
Yeah, I know he's a very intense coach, and I think that shows on the defensive side of the ball. And Cole, as far as that's concerned, I said Friday night on the radio, if you're going to throw against Smithsburg, then you're going to throw at your own risk, because interceptions are something that the defense has had a penchant for so far this season, and 5 more of them on Friday night. You had 2 of them yourself. What's going on back there in the secondary that you're ball hawking so well?
Well, I don't know. We just have a knack to get the ball. I think we had our 10th interception. That was our 10th of the season. And I don't know. We just have a good group of guys back in the backs. And we just have a knack to get the football.
And you and Bryce have played football together for a long time, coming up through the ranks. And, what's it feel like here in your senior season now, knowing that this is the final year of high school? Every game, certainly a big game, standing at 2-1 right now. What's that like?
Oh, well, it's nice to, be finally playing with everybody on the team, because we've been scattered around through high school with Bryce being on varsity when he was a freshman and stuff. But, I mean, it's nice to have our core group, because when we were younger, we were always winning. And it's nice to know that, we're all together and we feel like we are going to be able to get it done this year.
Bryce, what's that win do for you from Friday night? I mean, week 3 had been a tough week for Smithsburg football. I'd look back, I think the last 6 years, Smithsburg had lost in week 3 every single season. So to get that win and be standing at 2-1 right now with the bulk of the schedule still ahead, I mean, where does that put you right now?
It's actually really nice. We had talked to Coach Lindsay about it, and if we had lost that game, putting us at 1-2, that's just not a good way to start the season. With 2 losses out of 3 games, that's just not good. So after we got that win, we were pretty excited. We're pumped up, and we're hopefully to keep it on a roll.
Yeah, as well as the defense is playing, the offense seemingly has taken a little time to get its footing under it. Is that due to the fact that you're doing things a little bit differently on the offensive side?
Yeah, maybe. This is another new offense this year, so I think our guys are getting better and better each week, and we can see it in practice. So hopefully we get a better turnout this week and just progressively get better and better at it.
It really surprised me when the first play from scrimmage was a pass play, because I'm looking at what had transpired the first 2 games of the season, and I think 89% of the plays had been runs. All of a sudden you throw the ball, you catch it, pick up 19 yards to start the game, but the passing game wasn't really integrated in quite as much as the game unfolded, but still you were really able to move the football in between the 20s for a long period of time. Does it get a little bit frustrating when you can't quite get over the hump at times?
Yeah, it does, but I always know that the other guys in the backfield, if I can't do something right, they'll always get it done.
And Cole, it has to be a little bit difficult. I mean, I'm assuming you guys are probably one of the best conditioned football teams that you'll find. Very slight roster this year. I think only 22 guys right now, with 1 being out with an injury. Tell me about that. I mean, just being on the field constantly, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams in your case.
Well, Coach Lindsey definitely prepares us to go both ways, because, I mean, we have a lot of guys that rarely miss a play. But, I mean, we have some players that can get us in if we need rest early in the game, you know, to keep us more conditioned for the end of the game. They definitely do a good job on that.
What's most encouraging about this team right now?
Definitely our teamwork. We don't really seem to get on each other a lot. Like, we trust each other out on the field, especially defensively. We're playing lights out right now. And I think we have that trust, like if our offense, if we're having a slow night, that we can trust our defense to get it done out there for us.
And Bryce, you're either dishing out the punishment or taking punishment seemingly on every play. What's that like for your body? You're only 3 weeks in right now, but how are you doing physically?
Well, during the game, I don't really feel it as much, but definitely Saturday morning when I get up, it's rough getting out of bed.
I'm sure it's the same for you too, Cole.
Yeah.
A lot of football to be played as the season unfolds. Thanks for being here, guys, and so far, so good on this season. Catoctin coming up on Friday. Thanks again.
Thank you.
I'll be back right after this. Kevin Dunleavy of the Herald Mail joins me to talk about the county soccer tournament in just a moment.
When your family is hurting, you don't have time to wait. Act now. Visit Meritus Urgent Care on Pennsylvania Avenue. Open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Meritus Urgent Care treats minor conditions like earaches, sore throats, and sprains. Meritus Urgent Care also offers x-rays and sports physicals, and many prescriptions are filled on site. Located off Interstate 81 on Pennsylvania Avenue, visit Meritus Urgent Care. Expert care, close to home.
Behind every great child, there is a great foundation. Premier Martial Arts will empower your child and give them a premier foundation to success. Our instructors have the passion to teach classes designed to build premier skills. Your child will develop greater self-control, confidence, and concentration. Premier Martial Arts will take your child up the path of greatness. Call Premier Martial Arts today.
Welcome back to the show. We continue now with the county soccer tournament. I'm joined by Kevin Dunleavy from the Herald Mail. Let me talk a little about the boys first, since they were up first in this 17th annual tournament. In the boys' semifinal matches, as you had said, the battle of the goalkeepers between Boonesboro and Clear Spring. That was the first semifinal contest. The best scoring chance for the Warriors in that game came about midway through the second half, but Chris Brown's goal was ultimately disallowed. Now, as far as the goalkeepers, Jarrett Rickards kept that match scoreless, turning away Colin Booker's blast with an outstanding diving save. That came late in the second half. So it went to the penalty kick shootout scoreless. Ian Hose denied the first 2 Boonesboro shooters, saving a pair of ground skimming attempts. Meantime, the Blazers' second shooter, Joe Miko, proved that a ball could actually enter the net. That gave Clear Spring a 1-0 lead. Now, I mentioned the low shots that Hose had saved for a reason, because the Warriors then changed their strategy and tried to go high. but they missed over the crossbar both times. So it was up to Bucher for Clear Spring. He stepped up, slotted the game winner, and that set off a celebration for the Blazers, their second county tourney finals berth in the last 4 years, where they won the last time they were there. So the result also ensures that we'll have a new champion, with Boonesboro, the defending champs, ousted. And by the way, the Blazers still haven't scored a regulation goal other than via a penalty kick in either of their games, yet they're on to the championship. And Rickards bows out with his teammates despite never allowing a regulation goal in any of the games he played in county tournament games. Now, Williamsport won it all back in 2013, and the Wildcats were a victory over South Hagerstown away from getting another shot to do just that. And it was a foregone conclusion, right? After all, South had never made it to the championship match, but the Rebels were intent on laying waste to history in the first half. Matthew Manick booted home the match's first marker as the Rebels took the lead in the 27th minute, and then less than 8 minutes later, Johnny Diaz set up Romeo Segla in the box, and trust me, Segla finished what Diaz started, and it was 2-0 South. The worst thing that happened for the Rebels, though, was halftime. Williamsport regrouped, refocused, and the Wildcats pressured their way right back into the match after intermission. First, Jake Arnone converted Ryan Bowman's throw-in in the 53rd minute to put Williamsport on the board. South continued to scrap, though, and minutes later had its best scoring opportunity of the second 40-minute stanza, but the Cats held the Rebels at bay, and South did the same to Williamsport until the 75th minute when Arnone put the ball on the foot of Jaden Johnson, and Johnson put it in the net to even things at 2 apiece, and it stayed that way for all of a minute until a perfectly executed free kick by Ryan Bowman found the head of Arnone, and Arnone found the net, enabling the course of history to continue as is, as the Wildcats completed a come-from-behind 3-2 victory that sets up a Clear Spring Williamsport boys final. And speaking of history, Williamsport is just 3-8 there in championship play, while Clear Spring is 1-1. The only thing we don't know right now, Kevin, is when these games will be played for sure, either October 3rd or 17th. Now, let's get to the girls. And over their first game of the day in Williamsport, so Williamsport getting the home field advantage against North Hagerstown, but North had to be the favorites coming into that one.
Yeah, definitely. They had had the better results in the regular season, and they had only given up 3 goals in 5 games, but they gave up 2 in the first half. And North is not a good comeback, come from behind team. They had trouble building their offense in the second half, and they ended up losing 3-1.
Yeah, I thought that goal by Mackenzie Dudley was one that was a bit of a surprise goal when it happened. And then the second one that they got from Amanda Curry may have surprised Curry more than anybody else that she scored that goal. But that was one where Madison Foltz, who's been stellar all season long, was right there, and the ball just deflected off her hands and went in. And I think that really knocked North back on their heels. And as you said, not really a team built necessarily to come from behind. They do a lot of things based on their defense first. And they put pressure on Williamsport early in that match, but just could not put the ball in the net. So in what turned out to be the battle of the Madisons in goal, Madison gains and Williamsport winds up getting the victory there. Allison Getz with a goal in the second half for North. Kind of put the pressure a little bit back on Williamsport, but then Williamsport answering right back on a Taylor Neff goal. So a 3-1 final there. What surprised you the most about that?
Just that Williamsport came back after having a really tough week. They were coming off a 5-1 loss. That's the kind of loss, and it was to a mediocre team that they had lost to on Thursday. I forgot who they lost to, but it was.
Was that Winters Mill?
Winters Mill, yeah. They had so must have had a crisis of confidence there, but it didn't show at all against North, and the good start really helped with that.
Yeah, huge bounce back there. So game number 2 then gave us Smithsburg and Boonesboro, and of course Boonesboro a decisive victory in their first game over South. Smithsburg with a loss in penalty kicks to Williamsport. So Smithsburg wanted to set up a rematch in the final, come up with a 2-0 win. The first half was pretty much an even half. And then in the second half, Smithsburg gets a goal first on a penalty kick after Asia Owens was taken down in the box. Fiona Zom puts that one away. And then they get the second goal on what was just a terrific free kick by Kenzie Sarber. And it could have been any number of Smithsburg players who put it in the net, but it was Kara Poole with the header. And I don't think that's a big surprise that Smithsburg won that particular match.
No, Boonesboro was pretty much was not a real known quantity. They've lost some really decisive margins. They had gotten in on a decisive win over South, but couldn't really tell much about that game. So Boonesboro's got to come. They're starting a lot of new players, so they've got a long ways to come. It looks like Smithsburg they're doing a great job replacing they lost their top 7 starters from last year or top 7 scorers from last year. But Kara Poole, a freshman, she's scored in every game for them so far in 6 matches. So, it looks like she's going to supply a lot of that offense for them.
Yeah, really remarkable what Coach Delamay has done there. And that program, I mean, you see those players just come in and all of a sudden they step into those spots and they seemingly haven't missed a beat. So Williamsport and the defending champs, Smithsburg, in the girls' final. Again, we'll find out when that's going to happen here in the next several days. Kevin, thank you for the soccer report. Right after this, we're here again. We're coming back with overtime in just a moment.
Excuse me, you realize this television's on a channel with men in silk robes slapping each other? Maybe we could just switch it to where the athletes are wearing shoes?
This gentleman and this gentleman want to know if we can change his channel.
I love karate. He doesn't like karate.
What? No, me?
You don't like karate?
I love it. Are you kidding? I was telling you how much I want to join a dojo. Could you recommend a dojo?
Buffalo Wild Wings, 21 sauces and seasonings, tons of taps, and countless flat screens. Nowhere is sports more alive.
For over 25 years, Tony's Pizzeria has been serving authentic Italian cuisine. Open daily for lunch and dinner, stop by today and enjoy one of their many house favorites, made fresh from scratch daily, in the newly expanded and remodeled dining area. Serving a full liquor bar, beer and wine, Tony's 50-person banquet room is perfect for your next celebration. Dine in, take out, or delivery. Come see what's new at Tony's Pizzeria Restaurant and Grill, 10 East Salisbury Street in Williamsport.
Welcome back to the show, presented by Meritus Health, Urgent Care, and Total Rehab. It's time now for overtime. And first up, Kevin Dunleavy.
Thank you, Wes. You know what I realized this year? That weekends in September are the best of the entire year. The weather is perfect, warm days, cool nights. The baseball pennant races are intense. But the real reason that September is great is football. Every March, there's a lot of flowery talk about baseball spring training and renewal. But for me, the time of renewal is September. It's the start of the school year and the beginning of the sports season that really has come to overwhelm all the rest. I realized this on Sunday when I came home from the Redskins game. I'm a 24-year season ticket holder, then watched the final 3 quarters of the Cowboys-Eagles and Ravens-Raiders games. Then it's about 10 p.m. and I'm nodding off as my family is watching the Emmy Awards, and I realize I don't even know if the Orioles and Nats won. Don't know if Jason Day held on to his lead in the BMW or if the U.S. women rallied in the Solheim Cup. Baseball and golf are sports I follow religiously in the summer, but that goes out the window when September rolls around. TV ratings suggest that I'm not alone in abandoning everything else for football. So this coming weekend will start a little early for me since the Redskins are playing the Giants on Thursday night. Then the next 3 days will become a blur of high school, college, and NFL games, and I'll probably be in the same place on Sunday night rubbing my eyes and wondering what happened in the golf world, and if the Orioles and Nats still have any hope.
And maybe, just maybe, next Tuesday you'll be right back here. Right. You know, it's just all a cycle. It just continues.
Hopefully.
And things only get better, right? Well, after spending approximately 9 hours with a 75-pound camera on my shoulder shooting county soccer semifinal matches on Saturday, I have a few suggestions for speeding the action up just a tad for the purpose of making it more comfortable. I mean compelling for all of us. First of all, it seems unnecessary to me to introduce every single player on each team prior to every game. Why not simply introduce the starters and let them take their respective positions on the field as they're introduced? And the kickoff would then follow hot on the heels of the introductions. Secondly, should the match need to go to a penalty kick shootout, my humble proposal is that both teams should be addressed by the officials and given the rules one time as a group. There is no need for the referee to provide instruction to each individual shooter in advance of his or her attempt. Thirdly, all of the selected shooters should take the field not at midfield, which is some 35 yards away from where the PKs will be taken, but perhaps 15 yards back from the spot. And if any of those shooters should not show hustle in proceeding to the spot of the kick when it's his or her turn, the player should be tossed out like a hockey player at the face-off dot and promptly replaced by the next one in order. Maybe you soccer traditionalists are thinking, I should just use a tripod and save my shoulder and my suggestions. Okay, I'm fine with a little recommendation reciprocity to the point that I won't show you which finger on my left hand I injured while protecting the camera lens from this ball that would have struck it. Let's just say that of all things, it's best if I keep that to myself. Just a little bit of a rant there, Kevin. That's all. It was a long day of soccer on Saturday. A good one, but a long one. That's all I'm saying. Thanks for joining us this week. Next week, week 4 of the football season, and much, much more here on Inside Sports. Until then, we'll see you on the inside.